Meeting between Jean-Marie Ogandaga, the Gabonese Minister of Trade, and Marco Poloski Ribeiro, representing the International Monetary Fund in Gabon. The Thursday meeting was an opportunity to take stock of the cooperation between Gabon and the IMF. Mozambique has written a new chapter in the history of the country with the signing of a historic peace agreement between the President of Mozambique, Filipe Nyusi, and Ousofo Momade, the leader of the former Renamo rebels. This is one of the most anticipated transfers of this summer mercato. Nicolas Pepe, 24 years, joined Arsenal on Thursday for 5 years. Lille would have received a check of 80 million euros for the transfer. Lille makes 7th highest transfer profit in history. That's all for our top stories today. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. A bipartite meeting between Marco Poloski Ribeiro, the representative of the International Monetary Fund, and Jean-Marie Ogandaga, the Gabonese Minister of Trade and Industry, on Thursday in Libreville, the capital of Gabon. The aim of the meeting was to take stock of the cooperation between the Gabonese government and the International Monetary Fund. In addition to the update on the cooperation between Gabon and IMF, this contact-making meeting between the two men was also an opportunity for the representative of the International Monetary Fund in Gabon to express his admiration for the effort made by the government of the Republic of Gabon in the restructuring of the Gabonese economy. Africa faces the challenge of creating nearly 12 million additional jobs to contain unemployment, according to latest figures. The African Development Bank estimates that nearly 60% of young people are unemployed on the continent. These figures sound like a wake-up call. African governments are already fighting unemployment on several levels. In North Africa, the young unemployment rate is 25%, but it is even higher in Botswana, the Republic of Congo, Senegal, and South Africa, among other countries. With 200 million people aged 15 to 24, Africa has the most young people in the world. In most African countries, youth unemployment is at least twice as high as that of adults, according to the African Development Bank. Young women are hardest hit. The African Banking Institution has found that in most sub-Saharan African countries and all those in the North Africa, it is easier for men than women to get a job, even if they have the same level of experience and skills. Unemployment statistics in Africa do not take into account precarious employment or underemployment in the informal sector. According to a report by the Brookings Institution, a focus group based in Washington, young Africans find work, but it is often poorly paid and does not allow them to develop their skills or have some job security. "27 years and thousands of deaths as a result of the civil war in Mozambique. Much more than a tragedy, this war is a legacy written in blood letters. The peace sought by all the Mozambicans is now a reality. This Thursday will go on in history as the day when Mozambicans from all political parties silenced their differences and thought Mozambique first. Elsewhere, one would have said the Mozambicans acted as patriots. Today, in a fraternal gesture, the president of Mozambique, Filipe Nyusi, and the Renamo head, Ousofo Momade, signed a historic peace agreement to end decades of conflict between power and the former rebels, who have now become the main opposition party. This agreement is the work of a man called Alfonso Dhlakama, the historic leader of the Renamo, who died in May 2018. The man had taken his voice, his pen, and sometimes the means at his disposal for peace not to remain a slogan, but a tangible reality on the field of Mozambican democracy bent by decades of civil war. This peace agreement signed at a time when the regime of President Nyusi has been fighting a jihadist uprising in the north of the country that has killed more than 250 people in October 2017, is putting an end to a long negotiation process. As a reminder, shortly after the independence of Mozambique, former Portuguese colony, in 1975, the national resistance of Mozambique had fought the government led by the Mozambican Liberation Front for 16 years. This civil war, which which killed 1 million people, ended in 1992. Renamo then became a political party after a peace agreement was signed in Rome, paving the way for multi-party elections in 1994. In a speech of more than 10 minutes, the President of the Benin Republic, Patrice Talon, addressed his fellow citizens. What marked this moment remained the announcement and strong promises, including a series of social measures in the microcredit sectors, to the poorest and the integration of young graduates in employment. In March last year, President Talon had already granted about 6 billion CFA francs amount for the microcredit program for the poor. This sum will not only be raised to 10 billion or about 17 million US dollars, but will also be renewed every year to strengthen microcredit funds for the poorest in order to impact more beneficiaries. In addition to this microcredit program, Patrice Talon has announced the implementation of social program of integration into employment. This program will consist of recruiting 2,000 young graduates each year to support the state, to insert them into public and private companies over a period of 2 years, with the hope that they will be useful and effective in achieving their goals. Recruit at the end of the insertion period or when they will still their own self-employment. For the Beninese president, these initiatives with a strong social impact are proof of the equitable distribution of the fruits of the country's economic growth.
For many in rural areas, the dream is to move to the city for a better and easier life. But now, those basic necessities are a thing of the past in Zimbabwe.
When we lived here in Harare, everything was bright, but now the lack of power is making life difficult for us. I am not young anymore. My children take care of me by usually sending me food in bulk. However, now it's all rotting in the refrigerator.
For many here in Harare, finding power to cook basic meals or even water to clean has become a challenge. At the same time, health hazards like cholera and typhoid are plaguing the commercial capital. Continuous power outages have left many here helpless as they battle to access candles and firewood in the urban city.
I have grandchildren that need to eat. How do I cook for them when electricity only comes after midnight? Should I then be waking up at 2 a.m. to cook for my grandchildren and make sure they have everything they need? I cannot get firewood in town. Where will I find trees to chop?
As resources disappear in urban cities, many Zimbabweans are opting to return to rural areas. The reason being, they'll source their water at the nearby stream and firewood from surrounding communes, making life a lot easier.
Malaysia has become a destination or dumping ground for around 16% of global exports of waste, most of which from developed countries. Hundreds of illegal recycling factories have sprouted up virtually overnight, but much of the imported waste was just non-recyclable rubbish. The resulting public backlash and government crackdown has not only hit the fly-by-night operators, but has also hit Malaysia's legal plastic recyclers hard.
It actually crippled the whole industry. For us as a legal operators, we don't import those kind of rubbish.
Malaysia's domestic waste recycling is still at a really rudimentary level, so it is not producing enough raw materials to sustain the legitimate recycling industry there.
For this current moment, the government has actually set to every importer to have at least 30% of local waste to be absorbed by each and every factory.
That means they have to import the other 70% that has become increasingly hard. Some would like it to be tougher still.
I think the way forward is to ban. Once it's stopped, then you can talk of regulation. Because now I think it's gone way above what can be managed by the government. So the first step in terms of protection of the country, protection of consumers is to ban, and then to see the regulatory, that means what is recyclable.
The legal recyclers say they too are all for keeping out what they call plastic rubbish while allowing imports of recyclable plastics because it is vital to sustain their industry, without which there will be no one left to recycle Malaysia's own homegrown plastic waste. Finally, Nicolas Pepe is an Arsenal player. The London club made its arrival official on Thursday against the sum of 80 million euros. The 24-year-old forward, all the way from Lille Football Club, took his medical checkup earlier this week before signing his contract. He has signed with the London club for 5 years and becomes the most expensive recruit in the history of the club, in place of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, recruited for 63.75 million euros in January 2018. By the way, the Ivorian becomes the biggest sale in the history of the Ligue 1 abroad, ahead of James Rodriguez of AS Monaco at Real Madrid 75 million and Thomas Lemar at Atletico 70 million. Pepe, who will wear the bib 19, is the fourth recruit of the Gunners this season after Dani Ceballos, Gabriel Martinelli and William Saliba, who will temporarily remain with Saint-Etienne for another season. The forward had an excellent 2018-2019 season under the Lille's jersey with 22 goals scored and 11 assists in 37 starts. The Gunners played a bit of a dog in the manger role in Pepe's transfer case. Last week, the striker was mainly mentioned at Naples. His agent had also been there to negotiate his contract. It is finally Arsenal that won the bet, while the London club had been very quiet about its attraction for the player in recent weeks. But the plan of the London resident of the Premier League got the full attention of the player.
This modern building is the largest newly built stadium for the upcoming military games, Wuhan Five Rings Sports Center. It is a world-class stadium built based on Olympic standards. It consists of a stadium that can hold 30,000 people, a gymnasium that can seat 8,000, and a swimming center.
武汉体育中心，它的设计理念就是采用中轴对称、一河两轴的那个模式，两馆一场，像一个凤凰这个形状，体现它凤凰展翅，体现我们东西湖区人民有一种拼搏向上的一种精神。
The steel structure used in the Five Rings Sports Center won the Golden Steel Award, the highest award of the China Building Society, for its novel structure, difficult positioning, and high precision. 3 important events such as track and field, table tennis, and the rescue on water. From March to June this year, it successively hosted the China Super Football League, table tennis, and the water life-saving test contests for the military games. The construction of the sports center took 22 months. Among the newly built venues for the military games, it was the first to be completed and to go into operation. It held an opening event on July 1st. After the military events, it will be turned into a public fitness and entertainment space.
Meeting between Jean-Marie Ogandaga, the Gabonese Minister of Trade, and Marco Poloski Ribeiro, representing the International Monetary Fund in Gabon. The Thursday meeting was an opportunity to take stock of the cooperation between Gabon and the IMF. Mozambique has written a new chapter in the history of the country with the signing of a historic peace agreement between the President of Mozambique, Filipe Nyusi, and Usofo Momade, the leader of the former Renamo rebels. This is one of the most anticipated transfers of this summer mercato. Nicolas Pepe, 24 years, joined Arsenal on Thursday for 5 years. Lille would have received a check of 80 million euros for the transfer. Lille makes 7th highest transfer profit in history. That's the end of our newscast of the day, but keep watching Gabon 24 for further news.